Here comes the most horrific case. So far, in all the cases we have heard, there's always been some motive behind them, whether it's jealousy, love, money, or property. But have you ever heard of a murder committed so that the culprit could watch someone else's soul leave their body at the moment of death? It sounds like the start of a horror story, but this really happened. Let's dive into today's case revolving around the Nanthancode Massacre. Cadelle Jeanson Raja was born in Nanthancode, Kerala, to a highly educated and well-off family. His father, Dr. Raja Thankam, was a retired history professor, and his mother, Dr. Jin Padma, was a cardiologist. Cadell had a younger sister, Caroline, who aspired to study medicine like their mother. Besides these family members, Janson's elderly mother, Lalita, who was blind, also lived with them. The family was very respected in their neighborhood. Whenever their neighbors thought about Cadel's family, they always had good things to say, especially about his father, Dr. Raja Thankam. Even the local auto drivers, who occasionally received double or triple the fare from him, spoke highly of him. Unlike his father, however, Cadell wasn't very popular in the neighborhood. Although people knew that Dr. Thankam had a son named Cadell, they didn't know much about his nature, friends, hobbies, or where he went. This was because Cadell had been a very quiet and reserved child from the beginning. He preferred staying to himself and didn't talk much to anyone. Even though he had lived in that neighborhood for many years with his family, no one knew him well. The people there had only seen glimpses of him because he rarely left his house. Cadell's entire world was within his room. This behavior wasn't limited to just his home. He behaved the same way at school, which affected his performance. As a student, he wasn't good in studies, rarely got good marks, and consistently scored the lowest in the class. As you may have noticed, there was a common trait among Cadell's family members. They were all smart and doing well in life, whether academically or professionally, except for Cadell. Because of this, his father often scolded and threatened him to study properly, comparing him unfavorably with his younger sister. If your parents compared you to someone's son or daughter, you know how it feels. It doesn't feel good. Even if you are not as good as their son or daughter, you still don't feel good. The same was happening with Cadell. Being a loner, all these feelings were bottled up inside him, and because he didn't share his feelings to anyone, neither at home nor at school. He didn't have any friends at school either. It seemed as though Cadell was just existing, just there, breathing air and producing CO2. He was just there and nobody noticed him. Those who did only found flaws in him. As I mentioned earlier, Cadell had no interest in studying. He spent all his time in his room, sitting in front of his computer, either surfing the internet or playing video games all day. He spent so much time on his computer that the monitor had become his friend. But this hobby, constantly surfing the internet, was something Cadell genuinely enjoyed, and he was fine with it. Finally, he had found something in life that he genuinely liked, even if it was just internet surfing or playing video games. But the turning point in Cadell's life came when he was 14. One day, while surfing the internet, he stumbled upon a website full of mysterious and satanic rituals. What caught his attention was astral projection, a ritual that supposedly allows a person to separate their soul from their body. Cadell found this ritual so fascinating that he read every article about it, watched all the videos, and gathered as much as information as possible. He began practicing astral projection regularly. Allegedly, whenever Cadell performed this ritual or practiced it, he became completely unaware of what was happening around him. He had no idea about his surroundings during these practices and performed this ritual gave him a dopamine rush, making him an addict to the ritual. This habit of practicing astral projection had become a significant part of his life. For days, sometimes weeks, he would stay in his room practicing this ritual. Initially, Cadell would occasionally come out of his room, but he eventually stopped even that. His obsession with staying isolated in his room had grown so much that by the time he reached the 12th grade, he told his parents directly that he didn't want to study anymore and wanted to do something different with his life. After much argument, he dropped out of school. He did all this just he would not have to leave the house, stay in his room, and practice astral projection more. After dropping out, everything went south. He cut off almost all contact with his parents. Seeing all this, Cadell's parents were very worried. They feared that he might not be able to do anything in life, and since he could not even talk to people, they were convinced that their son's life was ruined after dropping out of 12th grade. Considering all this, Cadell's parents decided to send him to Ukraine for medical studies. They hoped that meeting new people in a new country would bring a change in Cadell's life. However, Cadell had no interest in studying. He only enjoyed one thing, astral projection. But somehow, his parents convinced him to go to Ukraine. They were quite happy thinking that their son would finally start doing something in his life. But as I said earlier, Cadell wasn't good at studying and he didn't want to be a doctor. After trying to study for a few months, he dropped out and returned home. Yet his parents were determined and didn't give up. Then they forced him into engineering. But the same thing happened again. He tried studying for a few months, but he dropped out again. After dropping out twice, Cadell's parents were extremely worried about his future. They were stressed, thinking that he wasn't serious about his future and was just wasting his time playing games all day in his room. Until one day, Cadell himself told his parents that he was interested in animation and wanted to study it in Australia. Most parents would have dismissed this idea and insisted on traditional studies. But because Cadell had shown no interest in anything else, his parents were relieved and thought, finally, our son likes something. Let him do this. They thought he had found his purpose in life and happily sent him to Australia. Their joy doubled when a few years later, Cadell called them to say that he had secured a job in an Australian company which was fully work from home, meaning he would be coming back home with a degree and a job. Cadell's parents were over the moon. It felt like a dream come true. Both their children were doing well in life. Caroline was about to complete her medical degree in China and return, and Cadell was coming back with a job. They had seen their son struggle with anxiety and social interaction for so long that they were just happy his life was back on track. But this was a misconception. The reality behind Cadell was entirely different. After returning home, Cadell spent the entire day locked in his room, claiming to be busy with work. His family believed he was delightfully working on his job, but in reality, he was performing rituals. Over time, his obsession with astral projection and these rituals grew stronger. He started doing increasingly bizarre things, making it clear that he was heading towards a breaking point. Unfortunately, this breaking point was not far off. On Wednesday, April 5, 2017, Cadelle Jeanson Raja, who was 19 years old at the time, decided to kill his entire family. On that day, Cadelle's father and sister were out for some errands, leaving his mother and grandmother alone at home. This was the perfect opportunity for Cadelle to execute his plan. He told his mother that he was working on a new video game and asked her to come and see it. His mother, who was genuinely happy that her son wanted to share something with her, followed him to his room. He sat in front of the computer, waiting for the game to start, when suddenly she felt an intense pain at the back of her head. Within seconds, she collapsed on the keyboard. The intense pain was because Cadelle had struck her with an axe. He continued to hit her until she stopped moving. After killing his mother, Cadelle cleaned up the blood and dragged her body to the bathroom. Interestingly, Cadelle remained calm throughout the whole ordeal. He then waited for his father and sister to return home. When they arrived, he had lunch with them and then asked his father to come to his room to see something. Although his father was not very interested, he eventually agreed due to Cadelle's insistence. Once in the room, Cadelle killed his father in the same gruesome manner he had killed his mother. He didn't clean the room this time because he needed to act quickly. He then called his sister to his room. As soon as she entered, he attacked her like an animal. Coraline didn't fall immediately after the first strike, so Cadelle took a knife and slit her throat. Within a few hours, Cadelle had killed his entire family. One might wonder why his grandmother, who was in the house, didn't hear anything. The explanation is that Cadelle had been playing very loud music during the murders, preventing his grandmother from hearing the commotion. His room was on the first floor, while his grandmother was on the ground floor. After committing the murders, Cadelle ordered food from a nearby restaurant to avoid suspicion. He had dinner with his grandmother as if nothing had happened and then went to sleep with the bodies of his family members in the bathroom. Allegedly, over the next 2 days, Cadelle dismembered his family's bodies. At that time, only Cadelle and his grandmother were at home. However, there was also a maid who had gone to her village for a holiday. 2 days later, when the maid returned and asked Cadelle about his parents and sister, Cadelle told her that his entire family, except for his grandmother, had gone to Kanyakumari to visit relatives, and his grandmother could not go due to her condition. The maid believed this story since it seemed possible. For 2 days, the maid came to the house, cleaned, cooked, and left without suspecting anything. You might wonder why the maid didn't notice any bad smell or see anything unusual. The reason is that Cadelle's room was on the first or second floor, the one above the ground floor, and he strictly prohibited anyone, including the maid, from going to that floor. He insisted on cleaning it himself. His parents were also not allowed on that floor, probably to respect his privacy. As a result, the maid never went to the floor where Cadelle's room was located and didn't discover the bodies. However, on 9th, when the maid came to work, she noticed that even Lalita, Cadelle's grandmother, was not at home. Cadelle told the maid that his grandmother had also gone to the rest of the family. This statement was chilling because that very day Cadelle had killed his grandmother and hidden her body in her room's bathroom. Cadelle realized that having multiple dead bodies in the house would be hard to justify, so he came up with a plan. That night, he set his house on fire, thinking he could claim that his entire family had perished in the fire. However, he underestimated how quickly fire spreads, and soon the entire house was ablaze. Cadelle then fled the scene. By 11:30 p.m., the police arrived to investigate the fire. Since the incident occurred near the residence of the Kerala Chief Minister, the police were on high alert. After controlling the fire, they entered the house and were shocked to find not only the state of the house but also the burned bodies. They found 5 bodies in the house. The neighbors confirmed that 5 people lived in the house, leading the police to believe that all family members had died in the fire. However, further investigation revealed that one of the bodies was a dummy made of metal and clothes. Thus, it was clear that one family member, Cadelle Jeanson Raja, was missing. After fleeing, Cadelle roamed and hid in the city for 2 days before the police finally arrested him at the Trivandrum railway station. The railway police identified him from wanted posters. Cadelle was easily identifiable due to his long hair and distinct features. He was behaving suspiciously and trying to hide his face with his hair at the railway station. Despite his arrest, the police were left wondering why Cadelle had killed his family. During the interrogation, Cadelle never provided a straightforward answer, constantly changing his statement and misleading the authorities. He claimed he killed his family to separate their spirits through a ritual so their souls could enter his body, making him stronger. However, the police did not believe in his story. Further questioning revealed that Cadelle harbored hatred for his family, especially for his father, who treated him poorly because he wasn't as brilliant as the rest of the family. So, out of hatred, he killed his entire family, and the police believed his second motive because it seemed more reasonable. His first reason that he killed them for astral projection was just an excuse, and the police believed in the second statement more because during the investigation they found clues that indicated a planned murder. In Cadelle's room, the police found many ritual-related items and burnt dummy, which Cadelle confessed he had used to practice the murder exactly as he killed his family. Furthermore, when the police checked his internet history, they discovered that he had been searching on YouTube and Google for days on how to commit murder. This indicates that he was planning all of this way before the actual crime. He had even ordered the murder weapon online before killing his entire family. He had also arranged patrol days in advance to burn the bodies. Now, if we go by the second statement, it explains why he killed his parents, but it doesn't clarify why he killed his grandmother and sister. They were neither making fun of him nor pressuring him to study. When the police asked him why he killed his grandmother and sister, his response was truly saddening. Cadelle said that if his parents were dead, his grandmother and sisters would be left alone in this world because he considered himself worthless. So he killed them to spare them from the sorrow and pain of losing their family. After being put on trial, Cadelle was declared mentally ill and was shifted to a mental health care center. One of the psychiatrists who treated Cadelle mentioned that it's possible Cadelle had mental health issues since childhood, and because they were untreated, they became more severe over time, leading him to eventually snap and kill his family. However, this is still not confirmed. In jail, Cadelle would suddenly become violent, attacking his cellmates and claiming that someone kept telling him to kill. His unpredictable, violent nature made him a danger to others. Psychological analysis revealed that Cadelle had schizophrenia. Now he is in solitary confinement, and I hope that someday he will feel regret or guilt for his actions. But before ending this case, the last thing I want to focus on is the issue of mental health. Whenever it comes up in cases that the criminal had some mental health issue, whether it was schizophrenia or something else, it does not matter. Whenever it is brought up that the criminal had mental health issue, the entire case, all of the crimes are seen through the lens that yes, because his mind was not in right headspace, that's why he committed these crimes, which is actually not true because there are thousands or millions of people who are suffering from mental health disorders, but they don't commit such acts. How many cases have you heard of where if, say, 1 million people have schizophrenia, all 1 million are going around killing people? That does not matter. What matters is not who committed the crime but the reason behind it, what kind of person he was, whether or not someone has a mental health disorder. A criminal is always a criminal. But with that, the case of Cadelle Jeanson Raja concludes here.